Well, thank you so much, Bill. Thank you, Carmel. As you may know, Bill and Carmel are the dynamic duo of George Brown alumni. So please send them a lot of love for bringing you this session and so many others all throughout the year. And I'm really excited to be with you because I got to tell you, as a huge nerd, as a former educator, I am just so fascinated by the power of AI, not just in every pursuit, but specifically when it comes to job searching. So I'll tell you a little story. Back when I was at Khan Academy, and as you may know, Khan Academy is this nonprofit that builds educational videos to help students learn algebra, learn calculus, learn all these techniques. I was working for the guy who created those videos, Sal Khan, and he called me into his office about 2 years ago, the summer of 2022, and said, Jeremy, I've just had a chat with Sam Altman over at OpenAI, and he showed me something that I think is going to change the future of our species. And I was like, come on, Sal, that's ridiculous. What are you talking about? And then he showed me ChatGPT before it was ever released to the public. And I knew Sal was right. This was going to be big. So I've made it my life's mission over the last several years to work with top alumni like yourselves from around the world to take advantage of these tools, land jobs that you love. However, as a former teacher, I'm not going to let you off the hook easy. Instead, even in the middle of the summer, I'm going to ask for three big things. Number one, I would love for you to answer some pop quizzes right inside the Microsoft Teams chat. Number two, I would love for you to volunteer for a live role play because guess what? I'm not going to give out a boring old copy of my ChatGPT book anymore. I'm going to give you a free LinkedIn profile makeover straight from a former LinkedIn insider. So if you're looking for a job this summer, you're going to stand out to all the recruiters in your space. And you can win that just for volunteering today. And then third and finally, even if you don't want to volunteer, that's totally okay. It's the summer, it's hot, I get it. But do me the biggest favor of all of taking action. Don't just watch and listen, actually do these things on your screen to get immediate results. So here we go, first pop quiz. Of the three big stages of the job search, finding the right role, getting an interview, or walking out of the interview with a job offer in hand, which of those stages has been toughest for you at this point of the year? So come to the chat and please let me know what has really been a big challenge for you guys. Okay, so we have Catalina says B, Ahmed says B, Phyllis says B, Morris says B. Oh my goodness, Bill, are you surprised at all? Every single George Brown alum practically is saying B. Does that align with what you're hearing?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just a tough market out there. I know that the overall macro market is okay, but I think especially for some of the white collar jobs that so many George Brown alums are going after, things are just tough. So what I want to tell you is no matter where you're getting stuck, whether it's figuring out the right role, getting an interview offer, getting a job offer, everyone suffers from the same challenge, which is what I call the blank screen problem. You're staring at that blank Google Doc, trying to write a resume, trying to prepare for an interview. You're not sure what to do. And a lot of times we just give up. So to help you break through, I'm going to be honest with you. ChatGPT is not great for writing resumes. It's not great for writing cover letters. We'll talk about why that is in a moment. But the one thing it's really great for is getting unstuck. And I'm going to show you how to apply it to every stage of the process, starting with the first one, finding focus. So why do you think it's so critical to begin your job search with a clear North Star? This is the role that fits me like a glove. Is it A, because it speeds up your search? B, because it leads to more success, more job offers? Or C, because it actually makes you more satisfied once you're in the role? Okay, so Gabriel says B. Let's see what everyone says. Leah says C. Gia says A. Shrey says A and B. Aha, sneaky Shrey. Kendra says B. Morris says B. Felipe says B. Dania says A, B, and C. Dania, you are brilliant. Why do you think A, B, and C are all correct, Dania? If you don't mind unmuting your line, just real quick, tell us why you chose all three.
Well, the obvious one is speed. Success, if you are more focused on the role that you're after, you're more likely to have invested some time to, figure out if you're going to be good at it. And, which means success, and success leads to satisfaction, I guess.
Yeah, I know it's a tricky
They're
one.
interrelated somehow, yeah.
But you nailed it. Like that was a classic trick question from a former teacher, and you saw right through that smokescreen. Whether you look at data from the government, from startups, from the world's biggest HR organization, every stage of your search is enhanced when you have that clear North Star. So, what if you're feeling confused? Is there some way we can clear the clouds and help you see that night sky brilliantly? Well, if you're feeling stuck at this first stage, please do me a favor. Raise your hand right now inside Microsoft Teams, or just go to the chat and say, I'm in. Whoever does that first gets that free profile makeover so you can really stand out. And Aishwarya, I saw your hand go up right away. That is awesome. So here's what I want you to do. Aishwarya, go ahead and unmute your line. And everybody else, give Aishwarya so much love in the chat for being so brave. Hi, Aishwarya.
Hi, Jeremy. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for
I
volunteering.
my
Yeah.
chat is not working, unfortunately. So I did want to be interactive, but I don't know. It doesn't let me message. So I'm just trying.
No, and you're doing great. This is the more important thing. So I love that you raise your hand. Tell me
Thank
this,
you.
Aishwarya.
hmm
What did you study at George Brown? And then what are you up to these days when you're thinking about the next steps for your career?
I studied health informatics at George Brown.
Cool.
And currently, I'm working as an assignment coordinator, but I definitely want to upgrade because I've been in this role for more than a year now. And I feel like I've reached a stage of stagnation, where it becomes monotonous and there's no space for growth. It's that kind of a space. So I'm trying to figure out what exactly are my strengths and weaknesses. And I
Yeah.
installed ChatGPT very recently, and I've been loving it so far.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. Well, I give you big kudos for taking the plunge. And I totally
Thank
feel
you.
your pain of like, sometimes we're just in these jobs that are not giving us what we want out of our careers. So there's got to be something better. And to help
That's
find
true.
that,
That's true. Something that makes me want to jump out of my bed in the morning. I shouldn't be getting up only because it pays my bills.
that's right. I feel like for anyone out there, if the only thing getting you out of bed is not getting evicted by your landlord and because the alarm clock is going off, there's got to be something better. So let's find it. Okay. So Aishwarya, I know you just downloaded ChatGPT recently, but if you were to say,
Yeah.
what
hmm
should I do with my life? Why do you think this might be an ineffective prompt? What's wrong with this?
You're not being specific
Yeah.
for ChatGPT to work on. So recently I did ask ChatGPT what should I do with my life, and I added things like, act like a therapist, an expert who has knowledge of everything in the world and answer this question. And I was like, tell me what should I do with this life and give me step by step processes and elaborate each one. So I gave it really a lot of work to do.
That's great. I love that. And what I'll say is you just nailed it, which is if you don't give it much to go on, it's going to have a really hard time giving you a specific path. So, what I want to do instead is I want to give it a really good information about you in particular. So, tell me two things about yourself, Aishwarya. Tell me what some of your
Mhm.
best skills are. So, what are some things that you're just really good at that are hard for other people? And then, number two, tell me what you're excited about. What does get you out of bed in the morning? What would get you even more excited?
I think for the first one, to say what I'm really good about, I think I really like learning, and I think I'm good at researching. Let's say I need to find something about somebody. I tried of some topic. I try to read a lot of resources, and I think I'm good at research. And what gets me excited to get out of the morning is that I'm just somebody who tries to be grateful. So I think just being alive gets me excited.
Okay, I love that. So, we have a good background. Now, we're going to get really specific with what we want. What are 10 specific job titles that match my skills and interests? And again, I want everyone to try this right now. Not only root on Aishwarya like Mars is doing, but root on yourself. Give yourself a huge head start in all the ways that matter by finding that perfect path. And now here's where it's getting really interesting because all of a sudden, Aishwarya, we have this nice list of opportunities that could be a really good fit for you. Everything from
That's
health
lovely.
informatics, data analyst, information manager, research analyst, given your interest in research. So let's come up with a stack ranked table. We'll say generate a stack ranked table that compares these roles across the things that matter. And what matters to you, Aishwarya? Are you focused on compensation, work life balance, making a difference in people's lives? What's really critical to you?
I think at the moment, the compensation and work life balance, because the place where I work, it's really wonderful. But I would like some facilities and wherein, I can put myself first. And yeah, I think the first two things.
I love that. And look at this. Look how ChatGPT is so good at kind of running those comparisons where it's not just, okay, here are some nice roles, but here are the trade offs you're going to make. Some roles have better compensation, but are a little more stressful. Some are a little more relaxed, but they don't pay quite as well. So you can make these tough calls about what's more important for your future. Now, I will just warn you of one thing, Aishwarya, especially when you're new to ChatGPT.
Hmm.
At first, it's so fun and so easy that you kind of go down this rabbit hole and you forget there's a real world out there. Who in the real world would you want to talk to, Aishwarya, if you want to really learn about these roles? Who's the best people in the world?
I think my boyfriend at the moment.
Is he in one of these roles?
No, but he's really supportive, and I think he would help me decide. So,
That's great.
yeah.
Yeah, having a great coach, whether it's someone in your family or a friend, that's awesome. But I think one of the huge advantages of having gone to George Brown is you have thousands and thousands of alumni doing all of these jobs, and they would love to share their expertise. So why don't we find one together? Okay, Aishwarya?
Oh, yeah, that would be wonderful.
Awesome. And so, of all of those roles, was there one that you were especially interested in?
Um, could you scroll down a
Yeah,
little?
let
I
me make
would
it a
like to see
little
the
bit
last
bigger there.
five.
And Danya, you nailed it. People who are in those roles are the single best way to learn because they know what it's like. They experience it every day. Okay, so what do you think, Aishwarya? Which one should we
I
start with?
think healthcare consultant. I'm just
Beautiful.
looking at that. That sounds interesting to me.
Absolutely. And consulting tends to be a pretty well paid role, so that's fantastic. Now, check this out. Hopefully, you guys have seen this at some point. But the beautiful thing about George Brown, as mentioned, is that you have access to amazing alumni for the rest of your lives. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, over 170,000 alumni are standing by to support your success. So, what I want everyone to do right now is come to that link in the chat and then bookmark it. I want you to come back here time and again. And I want to say, of all these 170,000 alumni, who is a healthcare consultant who can speak to Aishwarya based on their real experience? And sure enough, we've got 21 folks at Accenture, at AI firms, at universities. Should we focus on the Toronto area, Aishwarya?
Yes, Toronto. Yes.
Okay, beautiful. So we're going to filter, and then we have all these great folks. Why don't we start with maybe Mersal over here, or Sue, or Ina? Let's go over to Sue's profile. There she is, healthcare consultant for Ontario Clinical Imaging Network. Very cool. If we want to reach out to Sue, we're going to go to more, we're going to go to connect, we're going to add a note, and we always add notes because we want to make sure that Sue understands who we are. Now, if
Yeah.
you were going to write this note, Aishwarya, would you want ChatGPT to just to write the note for you? Like
I I
generate
think
a
yes,
LinkedIn
with
message?
really less words.
Okay. So let's see what happens. Now, this is kind of the dark side of AI, is that AI is so quick to write stuff and it's technically correct that you can kind of say, okay, this is amazing. But Aishwarya, you nailed it. It's too long. It doesn't fit in that box. It's too generic. So rather than using AI as your ghostwriter, let's use it as your research assistant. Check this out. We grab Sue's profile, her experience, her background, all the way back to George Brown. And we come back and say, what are three things we should call out in our message to this alum? And watch this. We're going to paste in Sue's profile. And all of a sudden, ChatGPT knows all about Sue. It knows all about you and says, hey, here are the things to call out when you write the perfect message that actually is appropriate. How does that sound, Aishwarya?
This is amazing. I think the common background, George Brown alumni, would make her want to reply to me.
Absolutely. And so this really helps focus you on what matters. But there's one last step, Aishwarya. At some point, you've got to go out there and
Hmm.
actually talk to Sue, have that conversation. So as you
Of
get ready for
course.
that big day, how do you want to prepare? What kinds of questions do you want to ask Sue to decide if her path is a good fit for you?
I would definitely want to ask how a day in her life looks like to understand what exactly she does and how she feels about it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely go to sites like, informational interview questions, and you can find some good answers. These are pretty nice questions, but
Mhm.
by definition, they are one size fits all. However, with ChatGPT, we can go a step further. We say, generate 10 questions for Sue to help me decide if her path matches my passion for research and for, what did you also say? For helping others. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so there we go. And look at this. This time, instead of having generic questions, it comes back to the things that you care about. You said that you want to work on research projects, you want to apply your degree in health informatics. So these questions are not just specific to Sue, they're also specific to you. And that's the stuff that makes a great career, Aishwarya, because I think a lot of times we take the first job we get right out of college. And then, like you've experienced, it's not quite the job that makes us happy. Versus if we can
Yeah.
go back to first principles and find the role that actually fits us, you're going to be so much more satisfied for years to come. And Aishwarya, I got to give you mad love because you have helped out every single George Brown alum, and I want to help you out in turn. Here is my LinkedIn profile. Send me a message, and I will give you a profile makeover after the session.
Lovely. Thank you so much. I will do that.
You are awesome. Everyone, please blow it up with love for Aishwarya. She was fabulous. And if you've got questions about anything we just covered, if you're curious about which tools to use or how to use them the right way or how to find the right alums, please just let me know. Ask a question in the chat, raise your hand, even just unmute and ask live. Whatever's better for you is great for me. Aishwarya, did you have a question?
Sorry, I
Yeah.
couldn't get your full name in the
Ah,
LinkedIn profile. Did you
sure,
stop?
sure. Yeah. So just send me a message here. And if for some reason it doesn't work, you can even send it directly to my email inbox. There you go.
Are you
Okay.
sharing your screen?
Oh, sorry, it's all in the chat. Um,
Oh, I
so
do not have access to chat, unfortunately.
okay,
So
no worries.
sorry.
I think I can
Something
get
wrong.
you access to all those links. So, Bill, if you don't mind shooting those over to Aishwarya because you have access to her email, that would be amazing. Is that okay, Bill?
Yes, I'm happy to send a follow-up email after the section with all the
Hey,
resources
there we go.
and your
Thank you.
LinkedIn, of course.
Thank you so much, Bill. You rock. Okay, Susan's
Thank
got a
you.
great question. How do you ask for referrals? So, Susan, you've hit on a really critical thing, which is that it turns out that referrals give you a massive advantage versus applying sort of online through job sites, through career boards. As you can see in this infographic, the vast majority of people across North America are really only applying one way, online. However, even though they're the vast majority of job seekers, they're getting a tiny minority of the actual jobs. What's going on? The people who are getting most of the jobs are the people who are getting referred. Because if I'm a recruiter, I don't want to go based on a stranger. I want to go based on someone that I know and trust. So when you want to ask for a referral, Susan, the trick is to find someone inside the organization who you either already know or can get to know. Susan, do you mind unmuting for just 1 second so I can walk through this process with you? Just let me know when you're online,
Of
Susan, and
course. Yeah,
I'll
I'm
do a
here.
very
Yeah.
quick demo. Hey, Susan. Susan, what would be an organization that you would be excited to get a referral at?
Okay, so I'm transitioning from dental hygiene and education, and I want to possibly do dental sales, possibly.
Very
Okay,
cool.
so I have dentists that I work with that are buying dental products. And when I want to
Yeah.
get into sales, I need to get into the sales position. I don't know anyone there.
Yeah. So let's take this example here. So this company, Sycan, is hiring for a dental sales rep. It looks
Actually,
like
look
it's
at
fairly. Have you applied for this job, Susan?
I just looked at it. I'm in
Okay,
my
amazing. Look at that. And so check this out. If we go back to LinkedIn and we say,
Mhm.
okay, who works at Sycan? So we're going to look up this organization, figure out sort of who's inside the organization. And then once we have these results, we're going to start to figure out how do we break in. Okay, so it turns out that there are hundreds of employees inside the org. So we come over here, we click on the number of employees, and then we're going to say, of all these employees, who could we reach out to who might have something in common with us? So what do you think, Susan, is one thing that you would probably have in common with folks inside this organization or similar organizations?
Like in skill set, or is that what you mean?
Think even more like core to your identity, like where you went to school or who you know, that kind of stuff.
I went to George Brown, and I did an undergrad at U of T.
Okay, so check this out. So we go to all
Biopsych,
filters,
yeah.
and then we come over here to school. We
Mhm.
say, show us everyone from University of Toronto and
Mhm.
also George Brown. And that way you're getting credit for both of your alma maters. We click show results. And then sure enough, people on the inside that you could be reaching out to, including this guy or this woman, Alana Ross, who's on the business side. So of course she's going to be focused on sales. And what I would do is I would reach out to Alana the same way we were just talking about. And I would send her a note saying, hey, as a fellow George Brown alum or a fellow U of T alum, I was thrilled to come across your profile. I'd love to learn about your experience. Could I buy you a cup of coffee next week and ask you a couple questions? And I
Okay.
guarantee you, if you reach out to folks like that, Susan, you're going to have some great chats.
Okay.
And just one last thing, Susan.
Yeah.
When you have these chats with the Alanas of the world,
Mhm.
how do you turn a nice, friendly chat into a referral? Any guesses?
It's got to be like, I know there's like for sales positions, I'm sure there's most positions you get a referral fee if you
Yeah,
match, right? So it's like something with that.
absolutely.
It's
So
yeah.
Alana is heavily incentivized to refer you because what Susan's getting at is companies really value referrals. Let me show you some more data. Turns out that referred employees are actually more likely to get hired faster, to stay longer on the job, even to outperform non-referred candidates. And so companies pay out these bonuses because referrals are so important. So now, with that in mind, Alana has a huge incentive to want to help you. And so at the end of the conversation, here's what I would say. Obviously, if you just hit it off completely, you have massive chemistry, you could just ask her straight up. But if that doesn't feel comfortable, you could say, Alana, if you were back in my shoes trying to break into PsyCan for the first time, what would you be doing to get your foot in the door? And chances are Alana's going to say, hey, I got referred, my whole team got referred. Referrals matter a ton here. And then she'll either say, feel free to send me your resume, I'd be happy to refer you, or keep me in mind when you're ready to apply and I can figure out how to get you hooked up.
Okay.
And now the door is open and you can walk right through it. Okay, Susan?
Yeah. No, thank you.
I love that. It's such a great question because we actually weren't going to cover that today because that's a little bit outside the AI
Oh, sorry.
boundaries.
Sorry.
No, but it's so critical. Like the data is just so clear that if you want to get found for these great jobs, it's not just about applying really well, it's actually applying in the right channels. And so I'm so glad you raised that, Susan. You are awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
And Susan, you know what? I'm so impressed by you. I'm going to give you a bonus profile makeover. So you can also send me a message on LinkedIn because you also did a little bit of a live demo, even though I put you on the spot. Fantastic.
Thank you. Much
Okay.
appreciated. I haven't done anything with my LinkedIn, so that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, this is definitely a little a chance to take it to the next level. Okay, let's
Thank
talk to some questions. Mohammed says, what expectations might we have if our experience field is not available in that institution? So Mohammed, do you mind unmuting for 1 second? Are you asking, like, how can you get a job in a company if they're not hiring for your field? Or are you asking something slightly different? And feel free to unmute Mohammed. Okay, we'll wait for Mohammed. Let's go to Morris's question in the meantime. How interesting would it be if we put our person? Oh, Morris, I love this. Okay, so Morris, this is crazy. But if you come to ChatGPT, guess what it understands? It knows everything there is to know about psychological assessments. So if you say, I am an INTJ in the Myers-Briggs assessment, and maybe you've done these DISC assessments or these other assessments before, um, what are 10 roles that are really good for people like that in the dental space? Because we were just talking about that with Susan. The really cool thing about ChatGPT is it understands that kind of crossover between personality and industry. It says, hey, you're an introvert. You should not be doing dental sales the way that Susan is. But maybe you should be behind the scenes doing some of this other stuff. And so it's a really smart idea, Morris, to take what you know about yourself and then feed that into ChatGPT. I love that, Morris. That is the first time I've heard that mentioned in over 100 webinars. You are awesome. Okay, let's see here. Sheree says, I also need a strong support in my career, background in tourism and hospitality from GBC. Can't necessarily figure out why I'm getting rejected for roles. What's going on? So guess what, Shrey? This is the perfect setup for our next section. So let me get rolling in that direction. Before I go there, I just want to give you a quick sort of a cheat sheet, if you will, on the right way to use AI. Now, there's all this talk out there about, oh, you got to be a prompt engineer and take all these courses. No way. There are only three things that matter. And it turns out they're represented by this mnemonic, GPT. G stands for generic, as in ChatGPT is a great generic tool. And a month ago, I might have told you, oh, you should also use Gemini for this and Perplexity for that. But here's the reality. Just 3 weeks ago, ChatGPT was upgraded to give you the best of all worlds in one tool. Let me give you a demonstration. You come into ChatGPT. First of all, it's free. Second of all, it's super fast. Third of all, watch this. With the newest model, which is also free, you can now upload files straight from your computer, and ChatGPT will do the data analysis for you. So if you've always wanted your own personal data scientist, you say, analyze this data, and ChatGPT can do what the world's fanciest data scientists can do, and you don't have to know anything about stats or Python. It's off to the races. And then finally, there's that question of the freshness of the data. If you say, what is the salary range for a dental sales rep in Toronto in 2024, ChatGPT wouldn't have been able to answer that question a month ago because its data was from 2022. Now, however, it goes on the internet and it finds all the best, freshest data straight from the sources of truth. So that way you know exactly what's happening today. And again, all of those things are completely free, which blows my mind. So ChatGPT is a great tool. And no matter which tool you choose, prompt it the right way. Simple way to remember this: garbage in equals garbage out. Specificity in equals specificity out. And then finally, no matter what you get back, don't be afraid to talk back to the machine. We're not living in the Google days of 10 links that you have to accept. Instead, if you want a shorter, more engaging, more quantitative response, just ask for it. That's the path to success. Okay, time for our next pop quiz, and then we're going to answer Shrey's question. What do you think is the number one reason that resumes are rejected without ever being read by a human recruiter? Is it A, because they did not fit the role? B, because they didn't use CAR format, as you may recall from George Brown, that's sort of how you can build out your resume bullets? Or C, because your resume was on 27 pages? A, B, or C, what is destroying so many otherwise good resumes? Shrey says A. Abaskian says A. Amasaralan says B. Morris says B. Tiffany says C. Oh my goodness, Bill, we've got a really divided group here, which I love. I want everyone to have their own opinions. Let's go to Shrey. Shrey, you mentioned this acronym, ATS. What does that stand for, Shrey? And feel free to unmute if you don't mind.
So Jeremy,
Hey.
ATS stand for Application Tracking System.
That's right. And what is the applicant tracking system? What is this thing on my screen right here?
So basically, it tracks your resume first, based on what the job requirement has stated, and it picks out those relevant like words or description, and then if it matches, and then I think it then send out to the like human, like a recruiter human, who further like checks and the check the requirement and everything. I think that's what it
Exactly.
does.
Yeah, you nailed it, Shrey. And what Shrey's getting at is that unbeknownst to us, even though we think we're applying to this easy application online, there's an AI behind the scenes that has existed for at least 20 years, way before ChatGPT, that automatically scans your resume, compares it to the job description, and decides whether you're worthy of having a human recruiter read it. So, to make sure that your resume passes that ATS test, I want to show you how to use your own AI to fight back. And if you want to win a free profile makeover, all you've got to do is raise your hand right now. Again, first person to raise their hand gets that goodie. It looks like it's going to be Shrey. So Shrey, you are on fire. You're asking amazing questions. So Shrey, come on back and let's do this together. And everyone give Shrey so much love. Hey, Shrey.
Hello.
Hello. So Shrey, just to set things up, tell folks what you studied at George Brown, and then tell us the kind of role that you want to get next.
So Jeremy, I began my study in tourism and hospitality management at George Brown College. So during COVID, I was unable to like find job because of there were like struggles, and I believe that human resource they were not hiring. So right now I don't like currently work in the industry. I'm actually working at FedEx right now in
Okay.
Brampton, and then I'm trying to like switch my careers. I want to go into tourism, travel, customer service. But the thing is that like I don't know what's happening. I've been trying to improve my resume. I did that. I'm still getting like many rejections, or I'm not hearing back from any recruiters, or I don't know what's going on. Like they kept me in a loop that I don't know, it's nothing. It's just
Yeah.
very blank. I have
Yeah.
like a blank screen in front of me, and I'm still waiting for a person or anyone to show up.
Got it. Yeah, so that's what I call the online application black hole, which is if your resume doesn't match what the ATS is looking for, and you basically are stuck in limbo forever, which sucks. So let's break on through. And just like Vaishnavi said, like you said, Shrey, we got to start with the job description. So what I want everyone to do right now, because I want you to do this on your screen, find your dream job. So I'm going to say travel and tourism customer service job Toronto, just to find a good job for us here. Now here we have this travel consultant role at G Adventures, which sounds kind of cool, frankly. So they're looking for someone who's really good at working with customers, a little frontline experience. Some of the things that you learned when you were at George Brown Hospitality would be amazing here. So, Shrey, are you ready to find out your most important keywords for this role?
Yes, I can see
Hey,
it right here on your screen.
yeah. And so the thing is, when we look at these job descriptions, sometimes it feels like so hard to figure out, okay, there's 100 bullet points. What really matters? The beauty of ChatGPT is because it's been trained on millions of job descriptions, it knows the patterns, it knows what's critical. So if we say, what are the top 15 most important skill keywords in this JD, in this job description, look at what ChatGPT can do. It can reverse engineer that massive list. Again, all the prompts are right in the chat, and it can give you your cheat sheet. Sales, customer service, travel, communication, problem solving, the specific tool they use, on and on and on. So that's step number one. Now, Shrey, do you mind if I pull up your LinkedIn profile, not to criticize it, but to shower it with love and make it awesome? Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay, Shrey, do you mind putting it into the chat real quick? Just go to your profile, right on LinkedIn,
Okay.
copy that URL, just paste it in the chat. And while
Yep.
Shrey does that, everyone give him so much love, because I'll tell you, it takes a lot of guts to raise your hand, but to share your LinkedIn profile with your George Brown classmates, that is true bravery. So please send a lot of love Shrey's way while he pulls up that profile. Thank you so much, Shrey.
No problem.
Okay, so I've got Shrey's profile over here. And then what we're going to do is, just like in the previous demo, we're going to make ChatGPT a lot more knowledgeable about Shrey. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say more, save to PDF. And then I'm going to open up this file so that we can grab all the data. Let me just bring this up real quick. And I don't know if you guys realize this, but you can get your file in this nice PDF right on your screen. So here's every last word from Shrey's profile. Okay, we're going to copy it all. We're going to come back to ChatGPT and we're going to say, which of those keywords are missing from my profile? We literally just paste it in. As always, here is the prompt right in the chat. I want you guys to try this right now. And here's your moment of truth, Shrey. You have 5 of those skills, but you're missing the other 10. Now, Shrey, just to set the bar appropriately, how many skills do you think you need to get through the ATS? Do you need all of them, half of them? What's the sweet spot?
Well, I do have most of the skills which I acquired from my job, like which is like teamwork, high multitasking, adaptability, being able to work in flexible hours, problem solving. But I think I also do need more of like strong customer service and probably more communication. What else? Like teamwork. I have teamwork. I think I would
Right.
say service orientation. Yep.
Got it. And so we'll come back to getting credit for them in a second. But just to set the bar appropriately, Vaishnavi is saying 60% is the sweet spot. Susan is saying 50%. If you had to sort of put some money on it, Shrey, what's your guess? What's the right sweet spot?
Or like customer service skills, maybe like service orientation.
Okay, well let's look at the data. Rather than guess at it, we're going to look straight at the source of truth. And it turns out, and this is shocking, one of the most interesting insights in the entire world of research around job searching is that when you track how often you get an interview based on how qualified you are on your resume, the sweet spot is not 100% or even 80%, but closer to what Susan and Vaishnavi said, 50 to 60%. What could explain that, Shrey? Why would a recruiter prefer someone who's halfway qualified versus all the way qualified?
I mean, they would be like hiring the person who has like all 100%, right? I mean, that has every single skill set they're looking for.
Right. So why wouldn't they want to hire that person? Why would they prefer someone
Again,
over here?
I think maybe that comes down to again lacking skills. Maybe they don't have or enough experience. Maybe they need
Yeah.
people who have as much as experience as possible. So
Right.
maybe they may be missing that, or maybe they have maybe a less experience and again skills.
Yeah. Check out what your colleague said. Danya is saying he can grow into the role. Alex says you're not overqualified, room for growth. Vaishnavi agrees with that, eager to learn. More realistic, says Amar Aslan. And here's the reality. Having been a recruiter myself at the start of my career, I used to love to bring in 100% qualified people because it was like covering my butt. I said, okay, I'm 100% confident this person's great because they have all the skills. There was only one little
Yeah,
problem. They would come into the interview, they would do great, they would get the job offer. And you know what they would say, Shrey? They would say, no, thanks. I got a better offer somewhere else. I'm overqualified for this role, which was devastating for me because now I had to start from scratch, all because they said no. Versus the 50 or 60% qualified candidate, not only can come in and hit the ground running, as your classmate said, they're hungry. They will say yes every single time. And that's what I want as a recruiter. So Shrey, good news. You don't have to have all 10 of these skills. Maybe only 3 or 4 of them is enough to get you to the sweet spot. So Shrey, you mentioned you have some of these skills. How can we get you credit for them in your profile? Where do they belong?
done the experience, I believe. I mean, done the like profile.
Yeah, so
In the
experience, your skill section for sure. And so guess what? If you're feeling confused about how to get them in there, ChatGPT can help. You can say, suggest 3 bullet point revisions to get me credit for 1 and 2, 2 things you have experience with. Now, ChatGPT is so good at this. It's shockingly good, where it says, hey, here's a new bullet point. Here's a new bullet point. Now you're getting credit for those things you did. There's only one massive dark side here, Shrey. If you just copy and paste these bullets right into your profile, right into your resume without reading them, how could it lead to absolute disaster?
yeah, that looks kind of impressive. Actually, impressive.
Yeah, it's impressive, but it may not be accurate. It may not be the
Right,
truth. We
right.
all know 2 years into this AI experiment that AI hallucinates. It does it
Yeah.
all the time, and it does it even when you're not looking. And so the reality is we've got to make sure that every last word that goes into our resume is 100% the truth. Nothing else is acceptable. So yes, use AI to be creative, use AI to get unstuck, but do not use AI to write your entire resume verbatim. Otherwise, you will fall into that trap. Now,
Okay.
Shrey, I know you've already graduated from George Brown, and you probably thought you were done with homework forever. Would you be open to doing one little homework assignment for me if I promise you it's going to be the most important homework you ever do?
Okay, sure, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, so here's what it is. I want you to get credit for the things that you're awesome at. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you this list of skills, and I want you to come in here when you have a moment and just get credit for the stuff that you already know and can do in your sleep. And if you work on this one homework assignment for me, Shrey, you're going to be so much better for every other job that you apply for. Plus, after you make those changes, come back to me and I'll give you another profile makeover. Okay, Shrey?
Yeah, is it okay if I connect with you on LinkedIn, Jeremy?
Oh yeah, please do. Please do. We'll connect right now. And I'll add a note and I'll say, Shrey, you rock. I'm saying that because you absolutely do. Thank you for being so generous today.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, everyone, give Shrey some love. And please, please, please ask some questions. If you've got questions about the ATS, the algorithm, LinkedIn profiles, or resumes, I want to take those questions. So put them in the chat, raise your hand, or just unmute and ask live. I'm going to look for your questions right now. I'm going to start with a few questions I didn't have time for before. Okay, Tiffany had a great question. How can you break in and demonstrate skills if you don't have experience in the job? And Tiffany, this is so critical because this is the classic catch-22 that stops us in our tracks. We know we would be awesome in this new role, but until we have that role, it's hard to demonstrate it. And so you feel stuck. So what do? Well, it turns out that it is up to you as the job seeker to build a bridge from where you've been to where you're going. As an example, I told you at the beginning that at the start of my career, I was an educator. I was a kindergarten teacher. But when I started applying for marketing jobs in the tech world, no one wanted to see information about how I was so good at teaching reading and so good at sitting on the rug and reading stories. They wanted to know what I could do for them. So I recast all of my old examples to be less about literacy and numeracy and more about what mattered to the new world. Word of mouth marketing campaigns, record increases, all the stuff that those recruiters cared about. And Tiffany, if you want to recast your example, say, please suggest 5 ways to transform my resume into a graphic design resume or into a culinary arts resume, and you paste in your existing resume, ChatGPT is so good at figuring out ways to get you credit for the stuff you've done. So it's not like you're starting from scratch, but instead are taking your existing work and making it even better. And so bottom line, please don't ever feel stuck in that catch-22. Instead, break on through. Okay, here we go. Arushi says, does ATS have a way to filter out resumes that are using AI-generated content in the resume? So Arushi, here's the interesting sort of situation that recruiters find themselves in 2024. You're right. Recruiters do not like it when people spam up their ATSs with these AI-written resumes. So if you say, write a resume, and then you submit it in the ATS, that is so annoying to recruiters because it's so junky, doesn't have any specifics. So they would love to get rid of it. However, here's the big other pressure. The hiring managers, AKA your future boss, are the people who actually want you to be really good at AI. They want you to be able to use AI on the job to be super effective and to drive more results. So I don't know very many recruiters that are trying to get rid of AI generated content so much as you've got to use AI the right way. If you create a generic template on AI, that's not going to get you anywhere. But if you use AI the savvy way that we just talked about to find the right keywords, get them into the right spots, that will take you far and it will impress your future boss. Great question. Okay, let us now go to our very final pop quiz of the day, which is, actually, we're going to do a little quick tour of the dark side of AI. I want you to watch out for the ABCs. A is for accuracy. And we just talked about this with our good friend, which is if you say write a resume for anything, it looks pretty good at first glance, but then you notice that there are all these curveballs, all these hallucinations that OpenAI inserts and not even their engineers can explain. So bottom line, make sure that accuracy is always your first priority. B is for bias. A lot of people look at ChatGPT and they say, whoa, this is like an alien civilization. But instead, it's actually a lot more like Soy Than Green, that old movie, because AI is people. It is our data fed back to us right through these interfaces. We all know that our society has lots of bias in it. So if we come over here and say, tell me a story about a kindergarten teacher, every single time you ask for that story, you're going to hear a story about Miss Rivera or Miss Smith or Miss Ann, which is great, but you're never going to hear about Mr. Schiefling or Mr. Jeremy because we're not represented in that social stereotype. And because ChatGPT defaults to all these biases, you've got to watch out for them. You know, if you say generate a picture of a CEO, almost every time it's going to be some old white guy, which is going to reinforce those stereotypes. So watch out for bias. And then finally, think about confidentiality. You probably have all heard about that poor Samsung engineer who lost his job because he leaked out information about a non-public product that showed up on a competitor's screen. So if you want to avoid that trap, here are a couple things you can do. First of all, just like on Safari, just like on Chrome, ChatGPT has an incognito mode, which means if you click this little down arrow and come over to temporary chat, everything you put into this window will not be saved and will not be baked into the model. That's step one. Step number two is, if you want to make sure that they never take any of your data, what you must do is come to settings right over here, come to data controls, and check out this sneaky little line, improve the model for everyone. Who could be against that? It sounds so great. But what they really mean is improve the model for us with your data so we can get richer. And if you're not happy about that, just toggle that off, and now your data will not be baked in. So keep those things in mind to protect your data. Okay, time for the last pop quiz. At the interview stage, there was a survey of 2,000 bosses about the number one interviewee mistake that immediately gets people removed from consideration. What do you think it is? Is it A, that limp fish weak handshake that melts in your hand? B, utter lack of knowledge about the company and role? Or C, that dreaded Mona Lisa half smile, non-smile? What sinks more job seeker ships than any other faux pas? AK says C, Leah says B, Kenneth says B, Fairuz says C, Morris says B. Danya says all three. Danya thinks that they're onto me here. Well, it turns out the answer is B. And to explain why, think about this from the hiring manager's perspective. If you are bringing in someone to interview for your role, you're trying to predict how they're going to perform in the future. You're basically building a crystal ball. And if they can't be bothered to prepare for this interview for 30 minutes, how are they going to be awesome on your team for the next 3 years? So you've got to be prepared, and you've got to prepare the right way. And if you want to win the very last profile makeover, raise those hands right now inside Microsoft Teams. I'm going to give you that final opportunity. And Kenneth Fung, it's coming your way. So Kenneth, go ahead and unmute, and let's do this for the benefit of every GBC alum. Hey, Kenneth.
Hi, Jenny.
All right, Kenneth,
Sure.
throw down the gauntlet for me, my friend. Tell me the name of a job and a company that you're excited about, and I'll show you how to get it.
Actually, I'm a software developer in the past, and I study cybersecurity in George Brown College. And
cool.
Actually, I do have a job recently. I'm trying to get the interview or get some preparation for the interview. It is a web developer in AGM Capital. Let me share.
Yeah.
Can I share it for the chat or just?
Yeah, if you have like a link to the job description, that would be amazing. I would love that.
Okay.
By the way, I'm so excited you're actually interviewing, because this is perfect timing. This is exactly what you need right when you need it. So that's so great.
Yeah. Or maybe I should send.
Was it AGM Capital?
Yeah, but I didn't find any job because this job is referred by my friends who's already in the company. So instead of sharing the job JD to you, maybe share a similar role, maybe a software engineer. Is this okay?
Why don't we take the Scotiabank role, which is also software engineering?
Yeah.
We'll use it as an example.
Okay,
that's great. Thank you so much for your flexibility. Okay, so before we even think about how do you get this job, let's think about what the job is looking for. So if you're the boss at this company, what are the two things, Kenneth, that the boss is looking for in a great interviewee?
First, I think the interviewee should be understanding about the technical tools that the company is using, and also the communication skills because you need to make sure your teammates can understand what you're talking about and discussing all about the model or system clearly so that they can implement their business model into some coding or programming, something like that. So communication skills is quite important, I think.
Yeah. And you nailed it, Kenneth. It turns out it's not just important for this job, it's important for every job. All across the world, whenever research is done on how first impressions form, across cultures, across geographies, it comes down to two things. Competence, which is can you do the job? Do you have those technical skills? But also warmth. Would I want to do the job with you? Can you communicate with others? And so, what I want you to do, Kenneth, is I want you to prepare for this job interview in two separate ways. One focus on competence, the other focus on warmth. And we'll start with competence because it's a little bit easier. So, if you are going to try to prepare for this interview, make sure that your answers are organized and coherent. Where could you get the most typical questions from, Kenneth? Where would you look for those?
Maybe how to solve a single problem. For example, what is the greatest problem you solved in the previous projects? And I have seen some video about talking in a STAR method.
Yeah.
And talk about situation, how I deal with it, and the results. So these are the most typical question I am facing, and also some question asking about the personality and such as are you a adventurer or are you a explorer, something like that, to ask about it if your personality is fit with the company.
Right, right. And so here's a massive hack. Once you have the job description, you can reverse engineer it using ChatGPT the same way we were talking about for the resume. So look at this, Kenneth. You're going to come over to ChatGPT. You're going to say, what are the 10 most likely interview questions for this role, for this JD? You just paste it in, no coding, no prompting. And then look at this. You now have the most important things that the hiring manager cares about. How do we know that? Because he or she wrote the job description. This is a cry for help. This is what they care about. Now let's go back to what you were talking about with STAR answers, Kenneth. When you get these questions about, can you describe your experience doing this? Could you provide an example of doing this? What is your preferred framework? Do you like the STAR method? Do you like the CAR method? What's your favorite?
Personally, I like the STAR method. Yeah, just talking and describing about my problem, how I'm facing. It brings. I think this is more easy to let the interviewer to understand the situation, how I solve it, and so I'm performing my skill set or my problem solving skills to the interviewer. So I prefer using STAR method than the CAR method.
And it turns out that the STAR method is basically like human storytelling 101. Here's the big challenge you faced. Here was your heroic action. Here's the happy ending. And guess who else knows the STAR method, Kenneth? Who else do you think knows about STAR?
The ChatGPT?
ChatGPT, you got it. So does Danya. ChatGPT has been trained on every one of these frameworks. So if you say generate a STAR answer based on my CV, you paste in your own resume, what it will do is this really incredible feat, which is the kind of thing that took me hours and hours when I was in grad school, now gets done in just seconds. Situation, task, action, results, bam, we've got a great STAR answer ready to go, which means we're already feeling really competent. But there's only one problem, Kenneth, which is no matter how competent our answers, if we deliver them in a cold way, we lose out on that communication, that warmth piece. So Kenneth, how do you prepare for that? How do you come across as warm, even if you feel so cold and nervous on the inside?
That is a great question because for me, I just prepare like you say, I'm preparing in a very cold way, just describing the situation and how I solve it, but I still trying to figure out how to tell it more warmly. Yeah, I'm still just struggling in this moment or in this point.
Yeah, I think this is the hardest thing for anyone. If you are an international student, a non-native English speaker, an introvert, if you're someone who's doing your first interview, every one of those things can be really daunting. But let me show you a technique, Kenneth, that will do the same thing for you that a great coach does for professional athletes. So one of the interesting studies of how practice works in the real world is that most people do a kind of practice that is very basic, where if you do mock interviews or practice interviews, you kind of do the same things over and over again. You kind of reinforce those bad habits and your growth plateaus really quickly. However, if you do deliberate practice, where you have a coach who is pushing you on the most important things every single time, you actually continue to improve almost linearly or exponentially as time passes. Kenneth, if I could give you unlimited deliberate practice, unlimited deliberate feedback, all for free, would you be interested?
Yeah, I'm really interested in it.
Okay, so check this out. It turns out that that very methodology is available to you for free on LinkedIn in the most unlikely place. If you go to the jobs board, if you go to interview prep, you will find an interview simulator that will give you all the practice you need. So you come in here and you say, okay, I know they're going to ask me about my greatest weakness, my biggest failure. I know they're going to ask me all these questions for software engineering. How do I get ready? How do I make sure that I'm really warm? Well, guess what? You can record yourself practicing the same way that a professional athlete would. You can understand exactly how you're coming across because you're seeing yourself the same way that an interviewer does. And then most importantly, you're going to get deliberate feedback on the things that matter most. Not just, Kenneth, be warmer, be more engaging. Instead, Kenneth, here's how to improve your warmth. That includes the velocity of your speech, the dynamism of your pitch, your use of filler words. Plus, you can take this answer and you can share it with Bill or Carmel at the George Brown team. You could share it with a George Brown alum inside the company, and you can get really specific feedback on what you need to do to ace your next interview. How does that sound?
Yeah, it sounds great. Sounds really help in my for me to preparation.
Awesome. Kenneth, you were fabulous. You've got the link to that tool right there in the chat. Hope everyone bookmarks it. And for Kenneth in particular, please shoot me a message on LinkedIn so I can give you that makeover and let me know how the interview goes. We are all rooting for you.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Great job, Kenneth. All right, man, that was awesome. Bill, I am so impressed. Kenneth is coming up upon his big day, and this is the perfect time to get ready. I love that. Okay, speaking of the big day, we are down to our final few minutes, but I would love to answer any last questions that are on your mind. So if you've got final questions about AI, LinkedIn, algorithms, anything that's holding you back, put them in the chat right now. If I missed them before, just put them in the chat one more time, and I will see them again. And as you put in your questions, I just want to give you a bunch of goodies. So first of all, I want to encourage everyone to connect with me if you haven't done so already, because I would love to answer any questions you have. Even if you have the question tomorrow in the shower or a year from now when you're looking for your next job, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. I'm happy to stay in touch. So that's number one. Number two is, if you want a free copy of that ChatGPT book that I mentioned, what you can do is you can actually get a free copy courtesy of Amazon, it turns out. Here's how you do it. You come to Amazon, you sign up for a free trial of Kindle Unlimited or Audible, you download the book, and then you cancel the trial immediately, and you never pay a cent, but you keep the book forever with my compliments and those of Jeff Bezos, I like to believe. And then finally, one last goodie that we're going to share in a second. Before I get there, I want to give out one last thing. So first of all, a massive shout out to Bill. I don't know if you guys know about this already, but Bill and Carmel on the alumni team have gotten you free lifetime access to every career masterclass I've ever built. And that includes AI, it includes the ATS, it includes LinkedIn, it includes tech careers. And you will have lifetime access through that link in the chat. It's normally $300 US, but it's free thanks to your amazing George Brown team. So send Bill a lot of love. Okay, Let's take some questions. And Bill, thanks for posting those. Daniel says, now when submitting an online application, they ask you if you're okay with having your resume reviewed by AI. Should we opt in or decline? So Danya, what's happening is that recruiters have always reviewed your resume with AI, the ATS we were talking about, but now because there's heightened scrutiny, they want to be more above board about it. I would always say yes, and here's why. If you decline, chances are you're going to go into a separate bucket that may or may not ever get read, depending on whether they get enough good candidates through the normal pipeline. So don't be freaked out by the use of AI. Just use AI on your side to fight back and make sure that your resume is ready for prime time. Great question. Ahmed says, do I need to match the job qualifications and skills on just my resume, just my LinkedIn, or both? Great question, Ahmed. So you already know why you need to match it on your resume, because otherwise you'll never make it through the ATS. So that's an obvious one. But what about LinkedIn? Does LinkedIn matter? Well, it turns out, Ahmed, that pretty much every recruiter in the world uses LinkedIn to go out there and find talent even before you apply. So for example, when I was a recruiter at Teach for America, I might come on here and say, I need to find an amazing teacher. And so I would look through teachers on LinkedIn to try to find the best people in the world to encourage them to apply. What that means is if you've got a great resume on your hard drive, but a blank LinkedIn profile online, you are not being found for these searches because your keywords aren't where they're looking. So the easiest thing to do, Ahmed, is take all your great resume bullets, all your great resume keywords, put them right into your profile. That is the simple, best way to get found in all the right places. Great question, Ahmed. So important. Okay, Fairuz says, what would be a good prompt to write a cover letter using ChatGPT? So Fairuz, here's the critical thing. If you come to ChatGPT and you say, generate a cover letter for a PM product manager job, it's going to look okay. It's going to feel like, okay, they nailed the right things. It's definitely got all the right spaces, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to tell you this, because so many people are taking this very lazy approach, recruiters are seeing so many of these cover letters, and they will instantly know that you use ChatGPT. And what is the instant association? Oh, Fairuz couldn't be bothered to write his own cover letter? He's that lazy already? Imagine how he's going to be in the job. So don't start with that terrible impression. Instead, use ChatGPT the right way. Say, review my cover letter and suggest 3 ways to improve. If we start with our own human ingenuity, and then we add in ChatGPT as an additional layer on top, what we'll discover is that ChatGPT is so much better for that research purpose than for the writing purpose. And so, watch what comes back this time. Now, instead of losing the authenticity, having that terrible generic prose, we get the best of both worlds, the best of our creativity and the best of this analysis. Great question, Fairuz. Okay, Shrey says, do cover letters matter nowadays? So Shrey, I'm going to give you a funny little analysis here, courtesy of Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon. So when Jeff Bezos was starting the company, he realized he had like 1 million decisions every single day, and it was killing him. He just couldn't figure out, like, what should I focus on? Ultimately, he developed this thing called a regret minimization framework, which is the idea that at the end of the day, most decisions don't matter that much. So I'm not going to get caught up on them. I'm only really going to focus on the things that will matter to me 60 years from now when I'm on my deathbed. So here's how you decide to write a cover letter. If the job description does not tell you to write a cover letter or does not tell you that cover letters are banned, and you're in that ambiguous situation, think about this. Is this a job that you're applying for just to apply to a lot of jobs, just to cover your bases? If that's the case, don't write a cover letter. You'll never regret it. On the other hand, if this is the dream job, the job that you will regret till your dying day not getting, absolutely write the cover letter. Even if it's never read, it will minimize your regret 60 years from now. So that is my guideline, Shrey, to make you not only more successful, but to give you more peace of mind as well. Okay, time for the last thing. Back when I was in grad school, I was an intern at Apple in the summer of 2011, which means that I was, unknowing at the time, at Steve Jobs' very last keynote, the last public speech he ever gave. And on that day, in July of 2011, even though he was already dying of pancreatic cancer, he still pulled out all the stops one last time, including this very last slide that I'll never forget, one more thing. And on that morning in July, Steve blew everyone's minds by pulling Siri out of his hat. No one had ever seen anything like it. And even though ChatGPT is definitely better than Siri these days, I still believe there's a direct line between the world that Steve ushered in that morning and the world we're living in right now. So, in honor of Steve, in honor of Siri, I've got one more thing for you, and I call it CareerBot 3000. Here's how it works. You now understand that the single best way to have a great life is to have a great career, a career that makes sense for you and who you are. So if you come in here and say, I want a job that's focused on sustainability because that's important to me. I want work-life balance so I can spend time with my family. And I want to move to British Columbia. And you can basically say, okay, here are the things that matter. Here's my resume. How do I ultimately get there? What does the path to success look like? And this tool will build out a Venn diagram of the things that make sense for who you are, what you can do, and what's being hired for. And if you say, hey, I want to be a sustainability director in Vancouver, this tool can go all the way to the promised land. Here are the keywords you need to get through the ATS. Here's how to make your resume even better. Here's how to prepare for interviews. Even here are the top employers in Vancouver that you should be applying to. And then if you're really feeling stuck, you come down to the next section and you say, hey, how do I get a referral? That question that we were talking about with Susan. And this career bot can even help you with that question as well. So bottom line, I want you to grab this tool. The link is right there in the chat and use it whenever you want it, whenever you're feeling stuck, to break on through and get that life you love. And in doing so, I want you to live out Steve's words to us, which is, hey, we're here for a short time, but we have just enough time to make a big honking dent in the universe. So take these tools, take this amazing community, and go out there and leave your mark. Thank you all so much. Thank you to Bill for making this all possible. And here's wishing you an incredible summer and amazing adventures ahead. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jeremy, for sharing your wisdom. So great if you could fill in the feedback questionnaire to let us know your feedbacks. So we'll be offering more workshops with Jeremy in September through November. I've pasted the link in the chat, so feel free to register for those if you're interested. Thank you again, Jeremy.
Have a beautiful evening. Thank you, Bill. Thanks to all the volunteers. Cheers, all.